we are recording. I'm going to say got it on that one. Okay. So, as always, I'm Brian Kynes, the creator of the Tales of Ulran campaign setting. We use a variety of all kinds of TTRPG games, reaching from Pathfinder to Dungeons and Dragons to newer ones that are being created as we speak by content creators on YouTube. We use just a plethora of all those things to create this, our own homebrew method of playing through this. And the awesome folks that are joining me here on this Sunday afternoon are here to help me write this story one chapter at a time as we navigate through this. So it's been quite a while for everybody. We've had holidays and birthdays and doctor's visits and LARPing. I didn't know what LARPing was. I've learned. We've had different jobs. Colby's got a gig he's having to get to. So many different things go on. But now we finally have got an afternoon that the storms have backed up enough where we can actually try to get a game in. And we're going with Plan B tonight. So we get to see what Finn and Rook and Azara and Arson are up to. I know everyone's kind of excited about that. It's been a minute for them. We've been just shooting the shit a little bit. Going through and talking about some of the things that have happened over the last several months. Just trying to get ourselves back into character, kind of know where our motivations are from. We discussed the Rangers Guild that we are currently helping. We discussed the revelation that Hector gave to Azara, talking about that book and the powers that lie within it, and how Vander has taken that into possession for safekeeping. We've talked about the Netherfell, or Netherfall, I apologize, a little bit more in-depthly, and also with Arson and his motivations and some of the flashbacks and memories that he's had along the way. Something we didn't record that happened in between the last few games. I had a Sunday where Danny and Jeremy were the only two that were available. And I wanted to throw something together for them. I'm not going to reveal a whole lot of that, as the group themselves really wouldn't know what the hell happened. But Jeremy, as you go through, you are more than welcome to reveal bits and pieces of that, however Rook would see fit, if he chooses to at all. Okay? But we'll have to reveal a touch of it, as I want you to play through the end to kind of get everybody back into the same path. Should be fairly painless, but you know, you can choose to do anything you want here, and it's really dependent upon you. Okay? So the last thing that happened, and the last time we were playing Plan B, Jeremy, is you went through that encounter in the room. And you and Finn had wandered outside to see how far spreading this effect that seemed to isolate you and him from the rest of the city spread. And as you were down there kind of walking through your paces and finding out a little bit about each other, you and Finn hadn't had a lot of time to really, I don't want to say bond, but understand each other's stories and perspectives. And you guys made a lot of ground. There's things now that you understand about Finn, and he understands about you, that, you know, you can't make that kind of shit up. It happened in roleplay, and it was awesome. Danny's even mentioned to me a couple times that he really has an understanding of who Rook is now, and is getting the bigger picture of it, which is exactly what we need, right? That's awesome. So, as you were wandering around outside, all of a sudden, at the end of the last episode, there was a large, fiery, force-blasting explosion that seemed to come from the top half of Vander's, like, magical items emporium, practically, his shop. The one time that you had been in or around that, you remember that it had a loft area in the top of it, and a large glass bay window in the back that was half of a circle. The glass blew out to the point where it was such a loud explosion you didn't even hear the glass shatter until it rained down on the ground below. Large blocks flew through the air. Large plume of smoke and debris just came out in the flame. To the best of your and Finn's ability to assess, this wasn't like a gas explosion. This was something arcane. And you heard this scream, kind of roar, kind of guttural, monstrous kind of roar. It seemed high-pitched. It seemed like rage and pain incarnate. All just vocalized, just boomed out from that top layer. And you saw, I remember you guys did some checks. You saw the shadow of something flash against the outside wall for a minute. It seemed to be some kind of large monster of some kind. That was all you were able to really determine. And we're going to take you right back to that instant where we stopped the last episode when that occurred. Okay? So as that happens, and debris is still flying away, what I want you to roll me, Jeremy, a dexterity check. And I'm going to roll one for Finn as well, to see who gets to react first to this, okay? Tell me what you got.
$30-20.
You win. So as things are coming down, you see Finn look up and you see some loose bricks upon one part of the building that have blown off and hit the ceilings of the other places. And you kind of hear them start to slide down the scaled and clay shingles of some of these buildings. And you notice that debris is getting ready to fall down upon you guys. Whether it be secondhand stuff or bricks from the side of Vander's shop coming loose and then falling. It's happening. He seems to be doing something archaic as he's holding his ground, like he's going to throw up a shield or some kind of spell to stop everything. What is it you do to react in this instance?
Ben looks like he's just going to stand there.
Yeah, it's almost like he is going through and he's saying some words and getting ready to do something. So instead of running, he's doing something arcane in preparation.
No, fuck that.
Okay.
He's going to be focused on that. And I'm going to be like, no. Come on. Yank.
Okay. So, as Finn does this, you beat him in initiative. You're going to have to do a strength check, and that's going to be... are you going to do a grapple and then a move to get out of the way?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead and roll me your grapple or whatever that takes. I don't know how much he'll fight that, but go ahead and we'll see what happens.
I'd imagine he's so focused on the spell that he's probably not going to be very hard to move.
We shall see.
Let's see, you said just a strength check?
Well, if you think it'd be something else, sell it to me, but that's what I'm seeing.
Right.
I'm always up for negotiations, bud. You know how we play this.
18.
Okay. With a natural 1. Way to go.
Completely focused on the one shingle.
Yeah, way to go, Danny.
Laser focus.
Yeah. Go ahead and describe to me this, and how many feet are you able to move? I'm going to half that because you're dragging him. So
I got 35 feet.
So I'll give you 20 because he's not a sack of potatoes and you're a pretty big guy.
Right.
He's not beefy, okay?
The end all be all, depending on how much shit is coming down and how quickly, is this going to be yanking him, like trying to take a step away, grabbing him and yanking him to the other side of me. Because he's much smaller than me. This shit falls on me, it's just another day at work, but it falls on him I just signed a contract with this
And
dude, and I ain't trying
describe
to
to
get him
me
hurt on the
how
job.
describe to me how you're grabbing him and stuff, just so I know what he has in his
Big old paw, scruff of whatever he's wearing in the back of his neck, and yank.
Okay, okay. So that succeeds. As you do this, I have to roll a dice and see if something else interesting happens. Okay, so as you do that, you're looking up, and there's still things sliding off the rooftops around, and even with that 20 foot of movement, you're still not sure that you're outrunning everything. I rolled like a natural 18 on the d20 oh shit dice. Okay, so as you're doing this, you didn't grab Finn in a way that stopped him from casting still. Okay, so as you guys are running and you're dashing and pulling him out of harm's way, you hear him say some other words in a Auroran Elven language. It's very high and fancy and hangs in the air as he does it. And you see a force field of some sort form up around him. And you, because you have a hold of him now. Okay? And as these two, as I rolled stones, come down, the first one misses, hits this force field, and gets thrown off to the side behind you. And the second one, with a natural 2, misses as well. This one was sizable, though, and it makes you nervous. But this large square stone, it seemed to be a cornerstone of one of the buildings up above you, comes down. It would have got you guys pretty significantly for 2d6 had Finn not been able to put up that shield spell in the method in which he did. So after that, you've dashed your 20 foot away. As you do, Finn stops and he kind of looks up. Are you saying anything at this moment? Now that you're out of the immediate danger.
I know we just signed a contract and all, and you're working for me, but let's not get you killed on the first day.
He looks at you, and he looks a little bit snooty about that, right? As he would. And he talks kind of point matter of fact, as we discussed. He has a little bit of the whole Spock kind of nature about him in the way he speaks a little bit, but a little bit more poetic than a Vulcan would be. And he says to you, he says, working for you and working with you are two entirely different things. If I'm not mistaken, I believe we just worked together and it was beneficial, was it not? As he looks down and kind of gives a cocky look at the big piece of stone that's on the ground beside the two of you.
Working together, working with, working for, all sides of the same coin. I don't want you killed.
In the middle of saying that, Finn puts a hand on your chest and pushes you slightly as you see him step back into the shadows that surround the side of the building that you guys were trying to run away from. Okay? Do you step back, or are you stopping him, or are you looking around to see why? Or something else creative, you decide. You are muted, buddy. I hear nothing.
I'm going to call this eye for an eye. I moved him. I'm going to allow him to move me. So he moves somewhere sneaky, shadowy. I'm going to go right there with him.
Okay. So as you do that, you see something very peculiar. As a pair of guards, you can hear them running up the street because it's fairly quiet out here, and it was really early in the morning. It was like 2 or 3, something like that, right, Jeremy? I mean, This is when everyone else is sleeping. You can hear their armored boots coming up the main roadway, and they go right past you guys, and they're headed in towards the front porch of Vander's. And as they do this, the three of them kind of stop and hear, whoa, huh? What the hell? What the fuck is that? And you see something just as soon as Finn was getting ready to say something about being safe, about making sure we're not blamed for this, whatever it was. Right before the words begin to leave Finn's lips, he gets stuck and he's staring on the front porch of Vander's shop. Remember, it's a covered, long rectangular stone porch that has like the eagle's heads on the railings, and it has that little patio set there that people can sit out and eat their breakfast on. And as that warm light from the fireplace inside has went out, and you can see the smoke, and there's still pieces of debris, pages and scroll pages and different books and bindings are floating down to the street and landing all around the area. You stare at what Finn's looking at, and it seems like a warp or a distortion is happening in the air right in front of the main steps that leads up to that patio in front of Vander's shop. It's like someone took reality and took it and twisted it. Almost like a tablecloth. And as that starts to happen, the area becomes devoid of color and then begins to retrieve back in, almost like a black hole. And as it opens up, there is a brilliant light that shines out of it for just a brief moment. I want you to roll me a perception check, please.
That's a 23.
You get a glimpse of where this other side of this is. This is some kind of arcane portal of some kind that is being cast and put up here. One thing is, you can see oddly shaped structures and houses that are foreign to you. And you can tell that it is not dark there yet, or it has already become light there, wherever this place is from. Which makes you think this is significantly far away. I'll give you that with your roll. Okay? And as that happens, 3 figures approach out of the hole. Okay? And as that happens, that light burst goes away, and you see time actually uncoil, in reality, uncoil and straighten back out as there's like a boom. And like a, almost like if you were to drop a stone in still water, that wake wave seems to go out and dissipate in the virtual reality of this. That's what this looks like. You've never seen anything like that in your life. And it'd be very good to note what that looked like and remember that. Because this is extremely unique. Okay, and you've seen some shit. You've been on the ships. You've been around. Okay? Finn is saying nothing. And staying very, very silent as this is going on. He does look over at you for just a minute with wide eyes. You haven't seen Finn get really excited or panicky about anything. But it would be... You can decide how it makes you feel, but he is also astonished by this. And you know he has an understanding of the arcane. Just from his expression. The 3 figures that come out, they have very long, low, white hoods. And the white of these robes that these 3 characters wear seems to be kind of an off-white. It's a weathered white, almost like the pages of an ancient book. It seems to have some kind of silver, a metal adorning the rim of the hood and the sleeves, and there seems to be some kind of armor of some denomination of a dull metal color that seems to go on one shoulder or the other, and some on the hips, and they seem to have some kind of armored pads upon their forearms. It's a weird mix. It's too robe-like to be a cleric, but it's not armored enough to be a paladin. It's something in between. It's weird. One appears to be female. One appears to be male. That walk out first, and the third one that comes out after them has his hood down. And I will explain him to you. Okay. Are you familiar with the actor Rutger Hauer? Do you know who that is by chance?
We'll hear in just a second.
Well, he is the guy that years and years ago he played in Blade Runner as the bad guy, the blonde-haired guy. And then years later on, he was in a movie, and this is one you want to look up. This is a movie called Lady Hawk. And Rutger Hauer played the lead male role in that movie. This person looks like an older version of that individual, of Rutger Hauer from that movie. He has a mixture of silver from age and dull blonde hair. Seems to be dry. He is squinty with crow's eyes and stuff, but looks like that Rutger Hauer character from that movie, and it's all pulled back. And almost what you would decide is almost like a samurai, like oriental style, in a way, the way he hangs his hair. He has some that kind of falls down in front of the face. The sides are all pulled down into a high tail of tusk of hair that seems to hang down. And he carries a very, almost silly long curved blade on his side. You've never seen anything quite like it. He murmurs a couple words and points his hand back and forth and looks at this, and he looks down at the ground and he steps on a piece of burning parchment and puts it out with his boot. As he picks up, and you can hear different words being echoed from the distance, but the one words you can hear come from him are, "What a mess. Begin." And he sounds like a tutor in a way. And when that happens, the next thing you see is also impressive. The female of the group throws back her hood. She seems to be some kind of elf. She holds her hands up and begins to chant. And before your very eyes, you don't know if she's actually mending the actual side of the building or she's creating an illusion to take care of the damage that is done. But you can see the building reforming and shaping itself up on that top floor, Jeremy. And it can't be, you don't know how something like that would be possible. You see different tiles almost going as if time is being rewound in reverse, and you could see a wave-like image and stuff. You really don't know if this would be an illusion or this is some kind of, you don't know what this is. But she's making it look like nothing happened. Okay? The other individual throws back his hood, and you recognize him as a, you know what this race of people are very well. This is a Bulgarian, which is our take on the typical D&D orc or half-orc breed. They look a little bit different. They're a little bit more human looking, but their tusks are a little bit larger. They're broad. They're kind of Neanderthal looking in the face, and they like to wear a lot of face jewelry and have a lot of ornaments and tattoos and things and runes done upon them. This is a darker skinned one that seems to be doing this, and he starts picking up several different blocks, and he has a large greatsword at his side. Okay, something you're now noticing is both of these two that are being told what to do by the one, the third, have tomes and books that are open floating in front of them. As they are saying and doing things, the pages flip naturally and these books follow them, almost like it's just floating in the air, almost like it's some kind of companion to them. It's almost as if they don't even have to think about it. Okay? And he starts picking up these large stones that a normal person just wouldn't just heft in this way. Rook. And starts pushing them along the sides and doing things of this nature. And he picks up one, and he's getting ready to walk over towards the spot where you and Finn are standing, silent with your breath held like this against the wall. And he looks, and he makes eye contact with both of you. You have to assume that he can see through the darkness of it. And he stops. He says, I want to make sure I get this right. Gotta make make sure I get this right. Did I not write the name down right? Just a minute. Okay, he says, I see 2 witnesses here. I'll have a word with them. And he sits the stone down and he starts to walk towards you and Finn. Okay? What is it? He's probably about 30 foot away from you at this moment. Or no, 20 foot. 20 foot. What is it that you're doing in this moment, Rook?
I don't know that Rook would feel threatened. I don't think he would perceive this individual as a threat in any way. I mean, we just watched that place explode. You know, these folks are here cranking back the clock on it.
Okay.
He's got reason to believe that they're here to help, if anything. But he doesn't personally feel like he's in any sort of trouble with this.
Okay.
So as he's walking up, I'm going to make my presence known. No weapons in hand. Nothing like that.
Okay. Okay. As this figure approaches, you are taller than him. But you know the feeling when you get when you're around someone that is the real deal. Not that Rook isn't. Not that Finn isn't. But you can feel that this guy is the real deal.
I'd kind of feel that commanding authority presence around him like I would have with the ship captain.
Yes. And as he walks up, he stops about 10 foot out from the both of you. And he stops and glares at the both of you. You can see a little bit of reflected light in his eyes. As you can see now, he has a scruff beard of black. It's really coarse. The hair of the Bulgarian, the race, they're all is like feral, like animal hair that grows on them. And you can tell he has a ridge like mohawk of it down the center of his head that's braided into rings, like metal rings that hang down off of his back. They almost give him the appearance of he almost doesn't have any neck because of how thick they hang down the back of his neck. And he's a muscular guy. And he kind of sniffs and goes like that and kind of licks between his teeth for a minute and looks at the two of you. And the book hovers over to his side. And he looks in it with an arched eyebrow and he flips a page or two and he flips another page and flips another and looks at it and kind of. And he looks at you and he looks at Finn. And he goes, so I suppose I should get your all's take on what occurred, or maybe more importantly, what did not occur here. The more honest with me you are, the better this will go. Finn looks over to you and looks back over to him and says, I'm not quite sure exactly what it is that I've witnessed here, or what is being done in front of me currently. There was an explosion. The top floor was engulfed, and Finn looks over to you and kind of says, flame, with a little bit of a question mark at the end of it. And he goes, and there was a sound. I can't describe what it was. What are you adding to this, Brooke?
At this point, like he's spot on everything I was going to say. So it's just kind of like, yep, that's what we walked into.
Just so you know, he is intentionally leaving out the fact that he saw the reflection of some kind of large creature in that smoke that you and him both definitely saw. He did not add that part to it. Okay?
That'll come in a moment.
Are you leaving that out as well? You're not saying any part of that?
So it's going to be a lot of nodding in agreement with Finn. And I'm going to gauge this guy's posture, I guess.
Okay.
to see if he knows exactly what happened. He's waiting to see if we saw it all. Because if after Finn is done, if he's looking at us like, there's more information you're not telling me, then like, oh yeah, then there was this.
What kind of check would you like to roll for that?
I think that would be something probably closer to insight.
Go ahead and roll that.
Purpose built for seeing through bullshit at a 23.
That's good.
And I'm not making a face as I'm watching the way he receives this information.
Okay. He is dry-natured. You've seen this race of creature before. This one is more intelligent sounding than any other one you've come across so far. And to have these kind of robes on and stuff, it's very curious to you. The etiquette and the voice that this thing has, this being. But you do not sense bullshit, nor does he seem to have some kind of anticipation. With a 23, he is not making assumptions, he is collecting information. Okay. Anything you'd like to add? If not, I will continue the scene.
I think with that, if he gives me the impression that he is genuinely just info seeking,
Yes.
then after Finn is done, I will pipe up and be like, well, there was this. And I'll inform him that it's certainly not the strangest thing that we had seen all night already. And I've been in this place for 3 days, and I've already seen some shit go down. I don't go into that much detail of it. I just mentioned the thing in the flames.
As you say that, the elven woman comes up, led by her book that seems to float in the air beside her. And she has a very elegant, voice. She goes, witnesses, how lovely. She says, Ran, R-H-A-N, is what she calls the Bulgarian. Ran. She goes, do me a favor, please, and move these stones in and out of the shadows. Make it look natural this time, would you? She goes, there's only so much I can do. And she continues on. He bends back over and he picks up that large stone and he hefts it up. He looks over his shoulder in anticipation of something, and that third person that walked out of the gate, out of that circle, begins to walk up slowly. His boots seem to tap on the stone roadways of this place and break the silence to a bit. Staring at you, Rook, not taking his eyes off of you. And his eyes are very, very blue by nature. Like eerily blue, like the blue that you can't tell if it's just a lighter hitting his eyes well or if they have a natural glow to them of some way. But there's a very eerie still to this man. A calm of patience. A look upon his face that doesn't show, but sees through. Okay? And as he walks up, he says, Ron, what are we to do with these two? Have you made a decision? Have they seen too much? Or have they chose to have seen nothing at all? The large Bulgarian sits down the stone in between you two as he kind of parts you and Finn and sticks it up against the foundation block of the building that you have your back towards and pushes it in effortlessly. He turns around and he says, over his shoulder, they saw an explosion. I'm sure those happen around here all the time, don't they? Can't be anything mysterious about an explosion if that's all they saw. Am I right? He looks back over his shoulder to you, looking for a verbal confirmation of this. Rook, what are you doing?
I've seen 15 just in the 3 days I've been here.
The mystic warrior looking figure with the long hair, the long silver white hair, looks at you and goes, 15 or so, you say? It's been as busy the last couple of days for you all, hasn't it?
Unfortunately so.
If you think of anything else maybe that you can't quite remember, as he bounces his eyes back and forth between the two of you, he goes, please return here. You have met Vander, I understand?
Briefly.
Briefly. If you were to recall anything maybe you left out of your description of these events, please do yourself and us a favor of keeping that between us. I can trust you to do that, can I not?
Loose lips sink ships. And I don't sink ships.
Roll a wisdom saving throw for me, Jeremy.
Oh, that's a natural one.
Okay.
That's gonna happen.
Colby, I want you to roll one for Finn. Roll 1d20 and a 1d6.
He got an 18. About right.
Okay. Okay. The next few moments are kind of a blur. Rook. As he says a couple things to you, and as they're happening, you almost believe it, and it's almost being created in your mind as the words are leaving his lips. It's almost like that was what I saw. That is what happened. I did see that happen as the airship flew over top of the building. You saw a barrel of something getting pushed off of it as it went over in the night. You remember looking up and seeing it pierce the moonlight, thinking, this is awful low for a docking ship, but no one would surely attack the city. Actually, seeing it outside the window from your bedroom earlier is what brought you and Finn out here to investigate that to begin with. It just seemed strange. And then a barrel of some kind of powder fell off, and when it hit, you remember the sound of the explosion that it caused when it hit the side of the building. You saw it just as plain as day. And now that memory's kind of stuck in your mind. Strange. It makes a lot of sense. It answers a lot of questions about everything that happened just now. There was a sound though, right? Or was that the sound of the rocks kind of screeching their way down the shingles as they fell? That's probably what it was. That nails on chalkboard kind of sound. That was probably what caused that. It had to have been. That's the only thing that makes sense. And he looks at you with a knowing half smile and nods. And he goes, as I said, if there's anything else you can ponder, please come to Vander and explain to him. It'll help us with this mystery. I appreciate you both. And he turns and walks away from you. What I described to you is your memory of that now, Rook. Okay? That's a weird way to do it, but that's what happens.
Modify memory works in strange ways.
It can. It can. So, at that point, Finn looks at you and he's looking up at the sky. And he says, I don't know about you, but I am well overdue to finish this night's rest. As you said earlier, and I think 15 was a modest number of the amount of strange things that you and I have seen over the last several hours. But regardless, it would appear that they seem to have this handled. And you can see that same lead figure talking to several of New Gimdar's Falcon Guard, and talking to them and giving them instruction as if they've known him or he has some kind of pull around here, although you've never seen this figure before. And he's directing 6 or 7 of them, and they start helping the Bulgarian, picking up blocks and moving debris and things of that nature. Finn turns on his heel and heads back to the Rangers Guild to get some well-deserved rest. What is it that you would be doing in this moment?
I want to take a moment to make a good mental note of the 3 of these.
Okay.
Because I've got just the person I want to speak to about the 3 of them.
Okay. So one was an elven woman, seemed to be Auroran, which is a son like a... Well, they're from the Aurora's Glades. They're an Auroran elf, which are some of the more distinguished ones of the group. This other guy was a Tusk Maul Bulgarian, which the Tusk Maul is a sub-race of what they are. There are different ones. There are Ridgebacks. There are different ones. He's a Tusk Maul. Okay. And then this third guy you just don't know, but there was something very foreign about him. He spoke with a certain lisp on his words that seems like he wasn't, that common wasn't his first language. Okay? An accent that you can't quite place. With the large curved blade. And like I said, they're dressed in some strange hybrid between a priest and a knight's kind of robes that are only armored on one shoulder and look worn and are ceremonial and have been worn quite a bit with books that floated out beside them. Those would be the main notes to take from this. Okay? So, let's go ahead and go to Arson and Azara. Okay? I need you to roll me perception checks, both of you, and tell me what you get. Okay, you got 10 for Bella, and Colby, what'd you get?
Natural 20.
Natural 20. Okay. So, Azara, through just being exhausted, and as you're falling asleep and you're thinking about the drink of Kyren rum that you had that made you show yourself a little bit, and you're thinking about the possibilities of Daphne and Damon and their existences hanging within the pages of a simple book, and you're thinking about Rainlore and how mysterious he sounds and seems, you're almost just exhausted and overwhelmed trying to put all these pieces together. And the fact that a being has told me that I'm not alone, that this Vander came up to you very warmly, and you were, if I'm not mistaken, in that encounter, you felt very comfortable around Vander, if I'm not mistaken. He had a decent elegance about him when he was explaining things to you when they came to take the book. And he explained to you that you were not alone, that there was another of your kind like this. And there's so many big things to think about in this moment, it just is exhausting. And eventually, you fall asleep, and you inadvertently begin to hum a song. And you don't know exactly where you learned this song, but you just remember it from your childhood. And it's just some kind of melody. It's always stuck in your head. You always hum this thing when you're giving yourself kind of self-comfort. It's not common, but you don't make out the words very well, but you know the tune. And as you hum it, you're able to fall fast asleep. And that crash outside, that explosion, does not wake you. Whether it's the combination of the room you were in, or how far away you were, or just that deep sleep and being exhausted, it does not affect you and you sleep through it. Okay? But, however, Arson, with a natural 20, you pop up and you hear it and it rumbles the walls. Now, you don't have any window. Well, you do have a window, but it's pointing out the other direction. You don't see a flash of any kind of light or anything like that. But with that 20, as you're looking around, I will say this. You do see a couple pieces of glowing ember-like paper and scrolls that blow past the window and a few little red sparks from something that seems very odd. And you feel, you know how if you're standing somewhere and there's like when we live near the Crane Naval Base, okay? And you'll hear these little explosions that kind of shake the walls and you can feel that kind of pressure. You wake up feeling that in a minute, like in your ears a little bit, but that's about all. What do you do with this information as you look out your window? You see these things, and something has woke you up. What's Arson doing?
Mm, I would guess he would go out of his room and see if he can see if anybody else noticed what he just saw and heard.
Okay, as you enter into the hallway, you hear some, and there's many different people in this place. They only had the 3 rooms left for 4 of you, of course. You could hear different amounts of light snoring going on. You look over to Azara's door, which seems to be undisturbed. You look in the distance and you look over at Finn and Rook's room. You don't see anything that seems out of place there. And as you stand there and you think about it for a minute, you don't see any light underneath their doors. Nothing. Something woke you up, but you just don't. You don't know if it was just a nightmare, because you know you have those. You have flashbacks of that wherever that place was that you spent all those years in. You still have a lot of unanswered questions. And as you're standing there and pondering this, you kind of get lost in thought for a few minutes. Trying to piece together and see the face of that red-haired elven woman that spoke so softly to you. You try to focus in on it and really give it a thought. And at that moment, you hear some footsteps coming up, and it is Rook and Finn. They seem to be coming back up in the room. It turns out they weren't in the room at all. Rook, you would see Arson standing in his doorway, half out with the door open, looking down the hall, just pondering things. Do you all have anything to say to one another as you pass?
Yet another strange event. Wouldn't worry too much about it. This place seems to be full of them.
I got woken up by one.
It doesn't seem like there's going to be anything we can do anything about right now.
Finn would say, agreed. It would see that the authorities have this handled for now. It's probably best that we stay focused on what's at hand. He looks distantly as if he's puzzled by something, but he's not quite sure how to put his finger on it. Rook, there's something strange that he's thinking on. And he says, at that point, he just kind of looks at you, Arson, and nods. And walks on into the room and leaves the door open for you, Rook, as he goes in. And you can hear him sitting his sword out and putting his spell book back down and getting himself prepared to get whatever remnants of sleep that he can. Are you doing the same thing, or do you have anything else you'd like to accomplish before this? Before night's
Like
over?
the bed. I would like the bed down,
Yep.
but I want 2 daggers on my chest.
Okay. Uh, as you do that, Arson, they seem to have went by. Just another strange happening. You've got so much on your own plate at this point. Is there anything more you're doing for the end of the night, or are you just going back in and trying to crash? It is completely whatever you would like to do here, sir.
Mm,
I can paint in any direction you want to walk. It's all good.
I think he's gonna go find Rainlore while he's still up.
Okay. So you don't know exactly where Rainlore's room is, but you know he's somewhere downstairs on the first floor of this place. Now, one of the last people to be awake was a Bulgarian by the name of Tharu, Tha-Ru, that was downstairs playing a card game. And when you head down the steps with your heavy feet and the stairs creak quite a bit, you realize that there's no one really at the front register right now. There's no one at the main bench there that would help the people in the guild register in. There's all the scrolls are there silent. The wood is starting to die down. There's a light crackle to it as it's starting to get a little colder downstairs because the fire is starting to die out to a degree. It's much warmer upstairs. And you can hear the gentle breath of what seems to be that dwarven woman by the name of Winona. They had all those scrolls and stuff, as she has drank herself to sleep and is sleeping on one of the tables downstairs with a bunch of scrolls and maps and stuff laid out. And she has one of her own monster furs laid over top of her as she sleeps there in her own arms on one of the tables. She's actually sitting on a couple different pelts and things as well to raise her up in her chair so she can actually lay her arms out there, and she's sleeping heartily in this place, but no one else is in the lobby and no one else is at the front desk. What would you do with that information?
I think Arson not wanting to bother anybody and seeing that nobody else is down there and the person that is asleep and he doesn't know where Rainlore is at, he'll go back to his room and suffer through any nightmares he might get once he falls asleep again.
Okay. All right. So let's do it like this. I'm going to have you all do Constitution checks, and the person who gets the highest roll on a Constitution check is the first one to wake up. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to say, Azara, you'll be rolling with disadvantage on yours because your room doesn't have windows and you're sleeping so soundly. Let me know what you guys get.
23.
Woo, early bird. What'd you get, Arson?
I got a 6. I'm sound asleep with my nightmares.
So you got another 10 from Bella there. Finn would have got a 19. So Jeremy, you are the first one of the group that wakes up. And what actually wakes you up is the sound of another piece of parchment being slid underneath of your door, much like you remember happening previously. Okay?
And with that, he would be jumping up, grabbing the daggers, and ready to just go ham on whatever.
Okay. As this happens, you jump up in haste, assuming. I want you to do a perception check of disadvantage, please.
11.
This does not seem to be the same type of message that you receive throughout the night. And when this comes through, you recognize this as possibly just a message from the front desk. This does not have that same feel to it as the one the night before. This is more like a wake-up call or message that you're getting. In that moment with that basic 11, You do remember that you were supposed to get a notice that you were going to be interviewed or interrogated, if you will, about the occurrences of the previous day. This could be a summons to that, as this paper looks identical to the one that you have on that Bast has on him. As you look over at his desk, he has that summons that has the falcon crest on it and stuff like that with the black and gold heading on it. And this piece of paper seems to be identical, just with different things written on them. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you doing with that information as Finn is still asleep at this point?
I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna read over it and see if there's anything specifically pertaining to me.
Okay. It is not specifically for you, but it is addressing that the fact that due to recent events and a shortage of manpower in this time of celebration upon the eve of the I'm trying to remember what the hell the name of that war was. The War of the Giants from the North in Old Gemdar. And due to the overwhelming demand for patrols during the festivities, statements will be written about the occurrences of the previous day and turned in to one of the guards that will be posted throughout the city. It can be handed to any of them at any time. These will be due in a week's time from now. So sometime throughout the next week, you need to write a statement about your version of what went down when that battle took place with that red robed figure that was full of spiders and shit, Jeremy. So good luck writing that down and explaining it to anybody. Okay.
I don't think I'm going to.
Right, you know.
Ain't nobody else saw that shit.
Yeah,
I ain't trying to look like a loony.
And when you do, you realize that there's more pieces of parchment added into this, as these are 3 papers that are together, and there are 2 blank statement forms, one for you and one for Finn as well. But it is saying that your interview has been postponed just because of their workload and things are getting backed up, and you got to think that it's somehow tied to what happened last night.
Hi.
You know what I mean? Which makes sense. I mean, airships shouldn't just be dropping barrels of explosive substances down on top of the rooftops of shops and shit. There's something going on, and they probably do have a lot to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, as you are unfolding the papers, that's enough to wake Finn up. Okay. I won't get into all the details unless there's something you specifically want to talk to him about. You just let me know. I'm going to move this forward a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
What is your plan? And I'll go to everybody. What is your plan now that you know you don't have to do this and you have a week to write your statement? You know that there were several different routes that you were able to take, and that Rainlore was going to explain to you some of the different quests that you guys could go on to help with the cause there. Whether it be to help with Vander, or whether it be to help with that druidic satire that you saw the other day that was with that large robed man. Or it could be that side quest mission that Winona was talking about with everybody every night, where there was this night song wolfen female shaman that had been a menace to the north of between Old and New Gemdar, and that is something that actually could be done for the guild. What is your goal leaving the room this morning?
So, I think the forefront of Rook's mind,
Yeah.
is one, he knows he signed that roster for the Date with Destiny.
Yep.
And he's kind of at a point where he's been here and it's just been one thing after another after another.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of just doesn't want to fucking be here.
Makes sense.
Like this place is trouble for him.
Right.
Whether it's just wrong place at the wrong time or what, but the last thing he wants is to be personally dealing with any authorities.
Point made. So, did we talk about how many days it was going to be until that ship took off? I know it wasn't going to be like tomorrow, the next thing. If not, I'm going to roll a dice for it.
I took down a note.
You did take down a note?
I did.
And how many days was it going to be?
Let's see here. If desperation has brought you this far, then you know the dangers of what you're about to sign. We are the crew for the date with destiny, and we pride ourselves on taking on the responsibility of taking on jobs in dark waters that others cower
Right.
from. Signed below with us, we will sail in 5 days' time to gather cargo. Air travel there, sea travel back.
Awesome. So, you have 5 days. You have this Sircon, or Sircon.
Yep.
It's a big question mark for you. You have the guild responsibilities. You have the Red Robe Woman. You have Azara, which you have begun to feel protective over. You have this understanding of where Finn's coming from as an ambassador for people now. And you also got attacked by these sand-like assassins that seem to come from the same place that Sircon's from. What's your first step here, bud? When you tell me that, we'll paint the picture going forward. Like, if you don't want to be here, you can go somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. And we'll go through it. If you think there's something here to be had,
I know exactly what his first steps are going to be for the day.
what's that?
I want to sign Spyder.
Okay. Okay. So, with that being your goal, you would delegate that with Finn. Okay, and that's your first goal. Finn says everyone's got to eat. So he says, logically, we need to find out exactly where it is that he frequents. And if he does watch all the different people throughout town and has his hand to play in those festivities, would it not make sense to watch for him amongst them? So if we were to do some local shopping and peruse what the city has to offer, we could potentially run into him. And Finn doesn't believe that the Spyder is going to be someone that they can just set up a meeting with and have it like right now. He doesn't even know where you can start pulling on that thread, unless you have an idea.
I actually have an idea.
What is it? I'm curious. Nope.
So once that gets brought to his attention, that he's not going to be somebody you're just going to be able to find and speak to,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take out a gold coin.
Okay.
And I'm going to take one of my daggers. And I'm going to etch a spider into the gold coin.
Okay.
And
I'm not going to make you roll for that. I'm curious. It looks
I'm
like
gonna
a spider.
go-
Good job.
I'm going to go around and about the city, and I'm going to look for the most downtrodden individual that I can find. And I'm going to give him that coin. I'm going to show it to him. I'm going to tap on it, show him the spider on it, and I'm going to hand him that gold coin.
That's
And
interesting.
I will let I will let the network do the rest.
Okay. And
Because Rook has dealt with people like this.
I know.
So this is a thing that he expects could work.
So let me do this. Roll a history check for me, please, and that will determine how accurate and how good of a fishing skill this is. Because I really like that, but I want the dice. You know what? Don't you roll it. I'll roll it. Don't you roll it. This
Okay.
needs to be a surprise for you. 20 is you're a fucking genius. 1 is like, why are you fucking up coins? What? Why? Good call.
Worst case scenario, I'll pass it off as a piece of art to somebody later on.
I mean, right? It's a win-win. It's Art Deco. It's good. All right.
One of a
So
kind.
with that, you guys get the coin and you set on these plans. Finn asks, "Is like, are we going to gather the others and see if they have the same forms and were given the same forms over the night as we were?
I think it'd be wise to at least let them in on what we're doing.
Okay. The first door you
Well,
guys would come to would be Azara's. Okay. Um, Finn goes up and knocks politely with the back of his knuckles and takes a step back and puts his hands behind his back and stands and waits. Azara, you hear 4 knocks or so that are light on the front door, and you see the shadow of 2 people standing underneath the gap in the floor as there is light entering in the hallway window at the very end of the hallway and seems to be coming through. You feel like you just went to sleep and you are like still half groggy. You passed the fuck out like big time, okay? So you don't know how long it's been. It's like you were so sleepy, you don't know if you just heard something. You know how that is sometimes, or if you actually did hear something. What is your reaction?
Hello? What
Um,
is that?
uh, Finn looks at you and nods. Rook, for you to say something.
I don't know that Rook has much to say. Like it's early. The last thing he does is he wants to do is spook her.
There's a
And
long pause.
he knows that he's a very loud individual first thing.
Yeah, there's a long pause, Zara, in this knock, and now you're not sure if you actually heard it or not. Um,
I would like to think that there's looks being exchanged between myself and Finn, and just like
there is definitely, man. Yeah, yeah,
just open the door, just say something.
yeah. You're right. You hear muffled words outside, and you can see the feet shift and move as the shadows fall underneath the doorway from the outside. What is it you're doing, Azara?
Uh, she is going to check her appearance real quick
Dude,
to
Okay.
make sure she looks human.
And which one are we going for? Your typical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. You do.
Uh, can I cast Magnify Gravity? Is it on a space or on an entity?
Tell me what your plan is, and I will let you know. We'll have some fun.
So she sees these 2 figures in the doorway, both of which who are not acknowledging her at all. Like
Correct.
she just hears little whispering and shuffling, so pretty much she wants to magnify gravity to root them in place, so then if they have any things that they're trying to do, like they can't.
Okay. So roll your DC. Roll 1d20, and let me know what your DC for this spell is. And I think it's your
9.
so
Oh
that
wait, is there a modifier?
there are. So it's your proficiency bonus plus, and I think you're a charisma based caster, correct?
I think so.
So what you do is underneath where your weapons are on that block in your character sheet, there's
Mhm.
going to be a spell save DC that's going to be written in that book. What does that number say?
Plus 5,
Plus 5
so
total?
14.
So 14. Okay, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jeremy, you and Finn have to roll in a strength saving throw versus a 15. Is it strength or constitution on that spell, Bella?
That
What's their
is
saving throw versus the effects?
that is an excellent question, Brian.
I agree. I thought it was good. I thought it was.
And I feel like both of us would be at disadvantage because we can't see her casting it. We have no idea it's coming.
Yeah.
And theatrically, I'm going to say that Rook is going to fail it just because I have an idea.
Okay. That works. But just for the hell of it.
Constitution.
Constitution. Okay. So Finn does it fails as well. So as you're casting it, looking down at the foot, I will say at the door, I will say one other thing to Azara. You do see a piece of parchment that seems to have the same kind of letterhead and stuff as that paper that Finn was handed by the guards the other day. The notice that we had to go in to talk to them about the events. It's in front of the door. You don't know how long it's been there, but you have done this, and you hear the hinges kind of squeak, and you can see the light underneath the door gets a little bit dimmer as that door squishes down a bit. Okay, and you can feel that pull, and as that happens on the other side, Finn and Rook also feel that weight, and your feet are extraordinarily heavy. You are being pulled down by the force of gravity and being anchored.
Yeah, I would like to think in this instance is that whispering back and forth, and Rook's just finally like, "You talk to her, you get her out. We'll do whatever we need to. I'm leaving." And I can imagine he just like goes to take a step when this kicks in place, and he just
Okay. So you hear a board go outside as if someone's trying to pick up a foot and they can't. Okay, Zara, what are you saying at that point? By the way, does this have verbal components to this spell? It would have a V on it if it did.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm just curious, what is it you're saying now that you feel as if the spell has taken hold literally?
You two hold on right there. Do not move. And I think she kind of gets out her weapon just as a precautionary and slowly opens the door. And then she's like, "Really? I really?"
As
Bath
that's happening,
Finn standing there, Rook face down.
yeah, and Finn just kind of shrugs his shoulders, and he looks at you, and you can see Finn is grabbing Rook's arm and is trying to help him up, but he can't get him off the ground, and you catch him right in the middle of this act, okay? And he looks at you.
I think she like dismisses it quickly. Well, before she dismisses it, she says, for future reference, the appropriate answer to, hello is an introduction or a suggestion of who you are. For few, just in case you have never known, and then
Oh, that's
dismisses it.
hilarious.
No taken.
As you did that, as you released that spell, Finn was in the middle of saying something, along the lines of, and to think that everyone was worried about your well-being while we were, and right in the middle of that, as he was pulling and you released that spell, he failed a dexterity check, and Finn goes flying backwards and lands on his ass as he pulls off one of Rook's gloves and stuff off his hand, and it comes slipping up, and now both of them are laying on the floor out in the hallway, out in front of you, just kind of looking up, embarrassed, frustrated. Finn's quick back up to his feet, and he picks up and fixes a couple things with like kind of a stern, elvish look across his face,
I
and he
think
says,
she.
"Good
Oh,
morning."
I think she's gonna like bend down, pick up the piece of paper, and lean against the door frame and be like, "We encountered entities that I'm not aware of and had major revelations in the past uh 24 hours. Do you really blame me for being cautious of who's at my door the first thing in the morning?"
Finn looks over at Rook in understanding and looks at you and he goes, "That I do not."
And then I think she's like reading through and she's like, "So again, please just lead with the good morning."
He nods, and do you? He picks up that paper and hands to you that one that was in front of the door, and says, explains that we've got these as well. You know what I mean? Um, I believe the city is short-staffed and is having a hard time with all of the recent events and happenings. We won't be required to make a statement today. He looks at Rook and kind of nods his head and says, "We have a plan of sorts as how to approach today, but I was curious which direction would you like to take? What would you like to do?" now that one of the most eventful days of my own life, and possibly your all's as well, is behind us. And the same list that I gave to Jeremy, you and I won't sit here and remind you of all the different things you have going on, but on top of those things, you also have all these other things in your mind now. You have someone that could be the same race of you going around here, and Vander says if you want to meet him, come talk to him. You know what I mean? Plus all the other things that I've already explained to Jeremy thus far. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things we can do for the guild to help that direction. It's endless. It's just as much whatever you want to do. I'll paint the picture. Just tell me where you're headed. What is your take?
They don't know about her race, right?
No.
Okay, so
That
they
was
would have.
Vander's words said to you, so that's your own personal little bit of information.
Okay, so they would have no idea, but I think she may just go like, I need to find somebody today.
Finn looks over at Rook curiously and says, it appears that all of us need to wish to find somebody in particularly. Who is it you're seeking?
I need to speak to Vander for details.
Do you speak up at this point? Because you see Finn take a deep breath at that point. Rook, do you speak up? You are muted, sir.
As he's getting ready to say something about the shop, Rook will just be like, nope, that's a great idea. Isn't that right, Finn? Everything's completely fine. Great idea.
What is it with you two this morning with vague suspicious behavior?
He
My
looks.
entire visit to this place has been nothing but vague and suspicious behavior.
Yeah. Finn nods in agreement and says, it would be good to see how. It would be good to go and visit the shop. It seems it is tied directly to us in more ways than one. That would be a good starting place to find anyone, I would imagine, to speak with Vander and get his knowledge and input because he knows so much about the city, right, Rook?
Right.
And he gives you kind of a polite smile. Yeah. With that, the lion, the Tin Man, and the Scarecrow are heading over to Arson Store. How do we want to do this? This time, Finn looks at Rook and looks over at Zara, and he takes a step back, and he nods for you to be the one to try to knock on the door to wake up Arson, because they haven't had the best of luck. So you go right ahead, Bella, if you want to.
Yeah, I think she goes like, for example, and then like,
Okay.
good morning. It is your friends. It is Asada and the rest of us.
The
Are you
rest of us,
awake?
all the names. Arson, buddy. The last thing you remember, I want to give you this. You know how sometimes you'll wake up and you'll remember to like the last 5 seconds of a dream? I will
Yep.
give you this. You wake up to the sound of her voice, which is familiar at this point. You see the silhouette of red hair and a shadowed face. And you could have swore that you saw green eyes, pale in the distance of it. And you feel like you were so close to seeing her image as it was coming down to talk to you about being safe and asking you things, and you woke up right before you were able to actually see the image of the face. To her voice Azara, trying to wake you. What is it you're doing, sir? You would also have the same parchment sealed letter on the floor in front of your door, and you would see a space with 3 sets of legs outside, standing outside the door. Nope, one. The other 2 cleverly backed up. Because we've had a day so far.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad that they went to her first, because the first thought in my head is if they did that was lightning bolts at the door.
Right. I mean, and why not? Right. I mean, lightning bolts for everyone. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, not really, but
Not
because I
really.
can only do it with the rest.
Right on.
But I think he would wake up and be like, and he would just have that look, of like he just like he's like, I don't know, it's like this sort of like disappointment on his face.
Yeah. You open up the door with that look
Like
on your
that's
face.
like the closest I can get to describing it.
Okay. And I'm curious,
Yeah,
can you tell us how
because
you're dressed and how describe what your character looks like in the morning?
well, since probably in the morning, because he might be like because of the nightmares he might be having. Um, he would most likely be in like a just sort of in like his like base attire, not really like have any belt on, just like sort of might just have like a robe on
Okay.
My
Like
when
ultimate
he
question,
wakes up.
what's that, Rook?
my ultimate question is, what does Bedhead look like on a Dragonborn?
I know. That I want to get there. I want to get there.
Ooh.
Are all your fins all fucked up, flipped on one side, and you got yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. So
yeah, I could see that, like having fins folded.
so I will ask you the same question I've asked the other ones. If you had goals today, in light of everything that we've talked about, and you're getting the trickle down third effect, I have to explain even and littler amount to you. The only other thing that you might have on your plate, other than these 2, is talking to Rainlore about what happened, how he found you, why he found you, tell you about the red-haired woman. You know what I mean? And that would be on top of the other list I've told everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your focus for the day?
His would definitely be talking to Rainlore and figure out what happened before everything went black and he woke up in that temple.
Okay. So, what we're going to do is you 3 are going to have a conversation, decide which one of these you're going to do. Okay? Finn is going to be very content on playing his role for Azara. Bell, you and him have talked about this. You understand that this arcane blade, this path that Danny's character has chosen to take, is all about finding someone and being an escort and being someone that is there to be an ambassador and a protector for them as they go on a quest for greater knowledge and understanding. Being part of this group with you all makes Vander happy. And Vander has secrets and answers that Finn needs to know about. So it is almost going to be, and I explained this once before, but it's been a minute, so I want to say this again. There's that TV series that was put on for a while there about the Wheel of Time. And if you've read in Wheel of Time, these people that have powers in magic usually have these guardians that walk with them. Forgive me, I didn't read the books, but I just know from the TV series and talking with Danny about this. And they are sworn to that person and protect them. Almost kind of like the people protect the Scions in the Plan A game. It's almost that kind of feel. Okay? So, in him just being a part of this and helping you in your journey, Azara, Finn is content with what he's doing. He's helping the right people. He's practicing what he's supposed to be doing by being at your side, because right now he's deemed you worthy of that, which should be flattering to a degree. Okay? And comforting. And I think I remember a few episodes back when you were starting to feel more okay around Finn. Just because of him escorting you here and there and things like that and getting to talk to him a bit. So, let's do this. Let's say the three of you head downstairs. And now it's a whole different scene. We're going to make the hour. We're going to roll a 1d4. It is 8 a.m. Okay? So you guys got a long rest in. You guys are replenished. That was at least 5 to 6 hours since the events that happened to the other half of the crew, if they choose to explain it to you or not. Okay? So everyone heads downstairs, and there are several different groups of people there. You see people walking in and out of all different makes and manners. The Darkwood wardens of Hamelsbyre have a certain kind of garb to them. They almost look like hunters of the dead. They almost have this dark, menacing ranger kind of attire look to them, and you can pick them out amongst the crowd. They don't really make eye contact with people as they walk in and out of here, and they come from the lower passageways of the bottom floor, and they walk in and out. A lot of times they'll grab flyers off the walls and contracts and rip them off there without even saying words. It's a very interesting thing. Wynonna is down there talking loudly and laughing about how hungover she is from the night before. She is at the same table with that ranger-looking Bulgarian race that you met from the night before called Tharu, or as he told you, people like to nickname him Tharu the Hero. And there's tables of all other kinds of interesting people as well. No sign of the satire woman or the large clawed man that was kind of like her guardian. But you do see Rainlore coming down a side stairway as if he rested on the top floor as well, but came down a side stairway like he was out on one of the outside wings of this place. And he has that large lance or large polearm, and he's using it as a crutch as he comes downstairs, and he's kind of looking down the stairs and pulls his hair back out of his face and wipes it behind his ears. Is kind of looking down, takes a deep breath and catches your all's gaze and grins and nods, and begins to make his way down the side stairway. Would you all be opposed to grabbing a table so you can discuss the events of the day, or do you want to talk this out?
I think it's been a while since Rook actually sat down and had a decent meal, so I think he would kind of motion like it's just something to eat.
Okay. Do you want to pick? There are of the tables in here. I will see if there are empty ones or not. You may have to share a table with people, as there's several folks in here now. There is a completely empty table over to the other side. Actually, with that roll, almost the foot of the steps coming down where Rainlore's headed down now. He kind of eyeballs the table and pulls back a chair and leans his weapon into it. And you'll notice on these tables, it's kind of interesting. There are notches and things cut out in the lining around this table for weapons to lean on them as people are sitting here and dining. It's a feature some places just don't have, and this place has them. Okay, these tables are round. This one particularly, maybe a little bit more ovalish than round than circular. And he sits at the end facing the wall and looks at the rest of you. And when you all get close enough, he goes, "I can't tell exactly just looking at your eyes, but I slept like a baby. How'd you all do?" A chuckle comes from the large Voldros. How does that make the rest of you react? He looks at you, and Rainlore kind of chuckles and smacks the table. Anyone else got anything to say?
Yes, Arson would just roll his eyes.
Okay. Zarda, anything?
I slept quite well. I think she's like a little bit like at the reaction of like um Rook, but like she's like I slept fine.
He nods. And he says, good, good. He goes, well, I'm interested to see what you kids have come up with. He kind of takes his fingers and cracks them and stuff and cracks his knuckles and sits his stuff down. He goes, he looks at the back wall for a minute and he's reading something that's on the back wall. He goes, no, there's probably too much stuff to do today. I'm not going to start this one off as tough as normal. Probably stick of something non-alcoholic maybe this morning. Just for a chance. Just for a change of pace. Seems like the right thing to do. And as he's sitting there and he's looking through a menu, I want you three to have a conversation. You can have it with him. He's an NPC there. You can ask Finn his opinion. I can play that too. The three of you all have distinct things that you're wanting to do. Work out how this works and what direction you're going to take. And it's tough because some of the things you guys want to do are secretive. You don't want to reveal it so much, but you still want to do them. So I will put it to you this way. Everyone could break off and do their own individual thing. That's going to be a pain in the ass for the game. But since this is a game that we're not writing for, you can do that. Or you guys can stick together and try to knock out all these things as the day unfolds. I'm just letting you know those are the main options, okay? So I'll go ahead and just open up the table to you guys for a few minutes. And if you want to, it's 9 o'clock. We could take a break. I can go fill my coffee up. You can just think about this stuff as you're doing whatever. We'll come back into the video and we'll have a brief discussion on it, and we'll jump into how this first day of freedom and adventure as a proper group is going to go for you guys. Does that sound fair? Okay, so let me look here for a minute and get my shit set up the way I want to. Pause recording. I about stopped recording. That would have been an editing nightmare. Okay, let's go with this. And pause recording. Okay, we're getting ready to pause, and I will see you all back here in just a few minutes. Huh, okay, we're back. Good deal. All right, so everyone's had a minute to get their coffee, refill their stuff, eat their food, do their things, man. Now it's time. Rainlore is sitting there with a big shit-eating grin on his face, as I've said many different times. Who is the actor that portrays Rainlore in this? Who knows?
Jason Momoa.
There you go. So you got to imagine him with the wild hair pulled back, and he's sitting there in the black undead slayer-like garb with the frail legs and the big long pole arm, just sitting back, just shit-eating grin, just looking at everybody and just tickled to see what everyone comes up with for the day. You can ask him things. You can ask Finn things. I will be playing both of those for you all. Everybody has their thing they want to do. So let's hear how you want to sell it to the rest of us.
Flip me off.
Arson is going to see if Rainlore can recognize him from way before, whenever he blacked out.
And how is it you do that? Do you get up in his face and just stare at him? Because that would be awkward. I mean, I need details, sir. You're going to have to role play.
Remember me, mother trucker?
Yeah. You know me.
Well, at first he's going to look to see first he's going to do a perception on him to see if he even can tell, to see if he even shows signs of remembering him.
I won't make
and
you
then
roll for it.
Either he succeeds or
yeah, I won't make you roll for it. Here's the thing.
and either if he succeeds or fails, he will.
He's not treating you any different than the person that came in, that they are given a comfortable place to stay. He is not looking at you oddly. He has got the same shit-eating grin on his face. He's treating you all as if you're a group. You might as well just be another patron in here as far as he's concerned. Now, if you have things you want to ask him, that's one thing. But I hate to do this to you. I don't mean to burst your bubble, sir. But you cannot just look at a person and tell if they recognize you from something from the past. Obviously, you recognize him. You know that that was the person that carried you out of there. You have to understand that he acknowledges that because he was carrying you, but he's not treating you weird at all.
All right. I don't think I heard how much says so. And Arson's gonna walk up to him and ask him about the redheaded girl.
Okay.
And he's gonna ask, and he's gonna also say everything he remembers, and I'm gonna ask, what truly happened compared to what he remembers.
Okay. So you don't have to walk up to him. We're all sitting at the same table. Imagination. Sure. That would also be equally weird if, like, he got up, you're sitting at the table, and walked up to him. But I'm just being silly. You're doing just fine, Colby. But
he sits down at the table. Arson just gets up and sits in the chair right next to him.
Rainlore's just kind of like
over there and just pop.
What are we doing, bud? So you ask him and you inquire about that. He looks at you and he says, so we're starting heavy this morning. I may have to rethink that first drink I'm getting. And he puts his elbows on the table and kind of scoots in and kind of puts a half grin on his face, and he looks at you seriously. And he says, what do you want to know? Who she is, what she looked like.
I want to know
why she decided that you were worth sacrificing herself for. And then he gets a little bit of a serious look. And he goes, you want to know all that? Because there's parts of that I would like answers to as well.
I want to know what happened and how I can go back and see if I can save her and get answers for both of us.
He smacks the table.
Because I'm at a loss.
Oh. Go ahead, Colby. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He would be like, because I'm at a loss of why I am getting nightmares / dreams about her and that time. And yet, that's all I get. I don't remember any of it other than flashbacks.
Okay. He wants to do an... Okay. He rolled a very, very high perception roll on you. Okay? He is trying to analyze your sincerity in this. Because when you're saying this, he's kind of looking at you as if he has doubts about your uncertainty of the situation. You know what I mean? But I think I know the answer to this, but with a 27, are you being very forthright in your asking of this and concerned about this, or how are you portraying this series of questions for him? If you think you can outroll it and you want to hide something, you can try that. But if not, and you just want to be clean with it, go ahead. But 27 is a number to beat.
Yeah. No, Arson is being as forthcoming as he can, especially the way his memory was before he woke up in that temple, and he wants to know how he can only Rainlore and he is here, and not her with both of us.
Okay.
And he wants to know if something went wrong.
So he hesitates for a minute when he's studying you. When you ask him this, Arson. And he doesn't pay much attention to the other people at the table for a minute. And when the waitress comes over, seems to be some kind of normal human druid-like ranger, very nature-oriented, seems to come up and is in basic clothing, but the drawings and the way she's done her hair in a long braid and the way she's inked out markings of nature markings on her face, you can definitely tell she's a druid, if not something else. And she comes up and he says, I'm going to move on to something, a little bit of hair on it this morning, and I think he's going to need one too.
Make
We'll
that
just start
three.
from there. What are you saying, Brooke?
And make that three.
I will take an orange juice.
He looks over and he smiles. And he goes, well, at least there'll be one of us that has some common sense. And he nods. Finn says, let's go ahead and make that two. I'll have a breakfast wine if you have that available. And the druid just kind of looks at him and kind of scowls a little bit, the female. She kind of looks around. You almost have to think about two broke girls. Like she's almost like one of the, she's like that one girl that's kind of like, breakfast wine, sure. And she walks off to get the stuff.
I love that show.
You know what? She's gonna be reoccurring in this now. The shorter red to brunette one from Two Broke Girls, that's who this druid waitress is. It's canon now. I'll work and come up with the name later on. So, that girl's funny in that show, dude. She's good. So moving forward, he looks at you. First, let's go ahead and establish that she has a name. Her name is Nadia. Nadia Riverwind. And he goes, and I'm saying she has a name because she's still alive. At least that's what I think. There are people that might argue that with me, but I'm not at the table if there's people. And everyone, well, they have a chance to believe what they want to. I have my version of stuff, and everybody else's can just kiss my ass. He seems very bullheaded and very... He wants to believe she's still around. Okay. He says, you, Arson, were not part of the plan. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you all of her side of things, because that will be for her to do one day when I'm able to free her. If you want to play a hand in that, that would be acceptable. And he's real serious. So I'm going to tell you the rest of this. And if you feel guilty about this after I've said for it, I want you to understand right now, you're the one that asked for the truth. So I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you it's going to make your nightmares go away. If anything, it might give you a few extra ones. Welcome to the fucking club. We're good about repressing nightmares around here. I don't know how much you know about who you are and what you are. Because obviously you're the only one at this table that's got scales. I don't know if you've noticed. There's a lot of people like yourself that have sought redemption after the destruction of Deneroth. And when he says Deneroth, roll a history check.
$11.
Okay. You get a flash of hearing a bunch of mighty militant names chanting the name Deneroth in a flash. And that's it. When you do that, he looks at you and he raises one eyebrow. He says it again, he goes, Deneroth is the original creator of the Draken. You're one of them. But that's not a death sentence. We're beyond that. And I don't know what kind of pain you had been going through. I don't know what your plan was or how in the hell you even got out there. But when we found you, I thought you were dead. Nadia, however, being a native to those lands before they were tarnished by time and chaos and destruction, which is something that we, the wardens of Hammelspire, have been trying to have sworn oath to fix and mend. Undead hunter, get it? He pulls on his garb. When he does, he pulls a silver chain that's wrapped around his body and waist, and you see 2 or 3 skulls that hang off the end of it down on his side. Looks like they're kind of makeshift grenades, that the chain runs through the eye sockets and mouth of the skull heads that hang down off the side of him as he jingles it kind of sarcastically. He has a dark sense of humor about his plot in life. He says, she saw that there was life in you. When we went out there, we didn't think we'd find it anywhere. And so the mission changed. But you were tied to something. He looks at you, studying your expression when he tells you this, Arson. He goes, and I don't know what it is. And he scoots in kind of close, and he sits up close to the table. As the drinks go down from the waitress as she comes back, and he pushes the one over towards you. I don't know what you're trying to run away from or what's trying to grab onto you. But it got her instead. And it still got a hold of her. I've never seen anything like that, Draken. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I still don't believe it. He nods his head like yes, and he's looking at you, and he says, Deneroth. Or at least what's left of her. What still looms down there and holds of that place, as many things that are dead and forgotten, or should be forgotten from the past, just kind of linger down in that shithole. She's not done with you. And now Nadia is down there in whatever kind of torturous hell she's stuck in, taking your place. Here's the good news. That's who she is. That's what she would have wanted to do. It's big shoes to fill. She wouldn't have done any other way. Her mother's stuck in that place too. And I plan to go back and free her. But we've got to figure out what is going on down there first. We've got to lighten the load, and we've got a couple clever ways of doing that. We have an idea of the source of the rot. It's making Thornwood dark and prickly, as it were. And I think all the shit that you're going through, or did go through, is part of that chaos. But I'll tell you this. When I found you, and do you have that sword on you right now, Arson? That sword that you took? The one you use every once in a while, that great sword?
Yeah.
He goes, the
I
last
would say
time
when he left I would say when he left his room, he got all the stuff together and on.
he looks at that blade and he goes, the last time someone donned a blade like that in these lands, they took elven and human lives that wore the same banner that flies above this city. He looks at you and he says, so one of the first things you all need to do probably before you decide to move on today is wrap that fucking thing up. And he looks at you for a long moment and goes, you don't remember any of this. You don't know why that darkness is calling out to you. You don't. It's probably a good thing. Because you think that shit heap of a story would keep you awake at night. Imagine if you actually knew the truth. But Nadia was a believer in redemption. I am too. Because there's a reason why you were able to crawl out of that place. Because there were a lot of other bodies there. They look real similar to you. And you were the only one that she chose. And he ends the conversation there. He says, that answer your question?
That answers your side of it. I want only what only you can give me. I guess the rest is gonna have to come from her.
Which is why we need to get her back, am I right? And he holds up his drink for you to toast to it.
Arson toasts to it.
Okay. He clanks it hard, takes a long draw off that as he's staring at you eye to eye as he does. Yes, Bella, what's up?
Azara also, since we're sitting there, I think she also clings.
Nice.
I don't know what your deal is, but sounds like a very powerful tale. Click.
So, with that said, Rook, do you have anything to say about this, or do you have your own things to bring to the table? Because that sheds some light on things, right? Because now we'll say that first episode that you guys had to sit there and act like you've not known this whole time, because we do this in the video format. Let's go ahead and imagine that you know that now. Rainlore pretty much explained the very opening scene we had for Plan B.
Right.
So now you have that knowledge. Does anyone have anything they want to add?
I think Rook would be lost in thought. He's kind of over the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I wouldn't say he's speechless so much as he's just kind of sitting there, drink in hand,
Yeah.
head on his just kind of holding his on his fist like this, drink in hand. He's kind of swirling his cup, and he's just kind of staring off into the swirling alcohol
Okay.
as he's just
Yeah.
lost in thought and calculating everything about it.
There's a lot of things there that trigger, and I just want to make a note of a few things there. Rainlore kind of candidly spoke gruffly about the fact that that's a place where things that are dead and gone linger. Right? And you've seen the echoes of things in the past when you were in the Netherfall. You have seen this. It's a weird interpretation. But you know he's seen it just as well as you have. From his description. And if he's talking about Deneroth, I want you and I want Azara to roll a history check for me. And I'll give you all a little bit of lore because you're a storyteller, Azara. And although you're not that old, you go from town to town learning stories and legends about places and putting on performances. And you rolled fantastic. I can tell from your face. What did you do?
I rolled a 7, so
Hmm.
she does not know anything. She's just vibing.
I get it. Hey, get them out of the way, man. Get them out of the way. Jeremy, what'd you
I,
roll?
I rolled an 8.
Which is what after bonuses?
An 8.
Yeah, you're not sure. That could have been fun. Oh well.
I'm just, like I said, he's just
Indeed.
lost in the swirls of the alcohol thinking
Oh
about it.
man, I mean it's frothy. It's a
He
frothy
is
drink,
he's lost in the sauce over there. Just like
right? That's
I mean,
awesome.
it's the same way I am over my morning coffee. I'll just sit here in silence, drink my coffee, and just
Point made. I get it,
try to
man.
calculate my life decisions that has led me to this point as to why I'm going to work at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Right?
I
Yeah.
could have played the stock market 15 years ago and been a millionaire.
Well put. So, with that, unless you have anything else you want to add up at the front, let's go ahead and move to you two. So, um, does do one of you two want to speak up, talking about what you want to try to accomplish today, and then we'll get to the negotiation. You guys role play this out because whichever place you all decide to go, either separate or together, I've just gotta pave the road, man. It's that simple. And if you need more from me, because this isn't where I'm not trying to leave you on a cliffhanger where it's like, what do you do? What do you do? You all know the goals that you all have, and you all have like 3 or 4 or 5 or even more things you can pick from. All you gotta do is collectively figure out where you want to go, and I'll get you going. Okay?
So, fortunately for me, mine is simple enough that I'll be able to travel with either one of them
Mm-hmm.
with the hopes that the individual is going to come find me.
I like that. Now, do you want to? Are you keeping that secretive between me and you? And
Yes.
okay,
And it is going to be one of those things where whenever I hand this to the person, be like, this is private.
okay. So we'll we'll
Have them
we'll
get my
wink wink
attention.
nod nod when we get there. Okay.
I
So
can make a suggestion, kind of, or
speak it
an
out, man.
observation.
You see
Um,
hesitation on Rook as he's plodding over, and the awkward silence it needs to be filled by you, Azara. So go ahead.
well, it's more so to Jeremy, or a thought.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, so the spider came for Azhara originally. Would it be feasible to say that in terms of likely targets, she may be up there? You know what I mean? Like in terms of the likelihood of him popping up again, would she be a target that may likely draw the trap again? Do you know what I mean or no?
Are you asking me or Jeremy?
Both.
I
Azara
mean,
would.
it would make sense. I feel like Azara would be one of those people that he would have a very interested eye on.
That's what I would tell you. But he's not going to come up and identify himself and connect himself to you in social circles.
Right.
From what you guys understood the other day, it is a fair assumption, Bella, for Azara to think that he has an interest in your survival and moving forward with this guild. Because then you're paying off a debt, then you're doing something where he knows where you're at, what's going on.
Okay.
And but the one thing that really rings to you is that he knew that you guys had a big bounty on you. And you know he's done what he can to repress that bounty and pay that off and put it on the back burner because he didn't want that kind of business in the town.
Oh, it was more so if it would be helpful in determining where Brooke would go. Why bring that up at all?
Oh,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that would be your assumptions. You can play off that how you would like. He's watching from afar. You would almost have to guarantee it.
What's the name of the guy that I want to see again?
Vander.
Vander.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. The
So-
remember he's the one that played by Timothy Dalton, the one that played James Bond for a while.
mm.
He's the one that had the green and black robes, the very elegant, deeper voice with the groomed black beard and the gray stripes, and the ring upon his head. It looks like the ring almost like a, not a crown, but more of like some kind of arcane band.
Okay.
Very elegant. Yeah.
So I think she'll probably be like, I I know that I have to see Vander. I am not, I believe that's hopefully an easy-ish task.
Okay. Okay. And Finn looks and nods and says, "That seems to be as good a starting place as any. Um, check in and see how things are going there at the at his arcane shop. I will escort you there, as I have already told you I would, no matter the location." And then he looks to you, Rook, to see what you're saying.
We'll head there with you. I'm sure Vander's probably got a few answers for me as well.
Okay. So is that what the group has decided to do? We're going to go to Vander's and seek out some information from him. Do you all know the questions you want to ask and why you're starting there? Okay. So I will say that they come out and a breakfast is served. This is going to be a combination of some kind of pork gravy on biscuits and potatoes. In the mornings, it's put out on a long rectangular plate, and then several dishes are laid out along sides of it so you all can take out of the middle portion. Okay? Just 1 minute. Sorry, guys, just a minute. I've got a visitor. What do you need?
I'm home.
Okay, well, I'm doing this, so congratulations.
A bit of money.
That's fantastic. We'll talk about it in a little bit.
Cool, bye.
All right, cool, bye. All right, cool. So, if you guys would be leaving the guild and you are heading to Vander's, let's roll 1d20 and see what happens. And if anyone, and I'll push this forward, but if anyone has anything they want to add, just do it. Don't hesitate. Just do it, okay?
So you know where what my plan is on the way. So
Okay. So, the theme of the night tonight has been 1 is piece cake, everything's fine. 20 is like, oh shit. Okay. Everything seems to be fairly settled. I will say this to you, Rook. The nagging suspicion in the back of your mind is you want to see what that shop looks like today. It's curious. And you're also looking for this person, this meager person that would be attractive, what's the word I'm looking for?
downtrodden.
Just downtrodden, very typical, you know. And as you go out, mind you, and I've told you guys this several different times, it is colder out this time of year, but at the same time, these streets are full of all kinds of vendors and stuff throughout the days. You see all kinds of steam rising up in different spots where there's little fires and little fire pits, and there's all kinds of the smell of foods. And there's vendors that have booths and tables set up lining the streets to the point where the people that conduct business here have to make sure they move as to not park their shit in front of their ways of getting into their businesses on the first level. It's just kind of like that in the up and coming potential of the battle against the giants from the north. Okay, so that is always a constant thing when you go outside here. So there is a plethora of shit that you can pick and choose from, and I roll randomly for it if you want to start doing that at any point. Okay, you'll have to pass fighting spirits, meadery and winery, which we've already discussed. You guys have been there before. Arson has been there before. With the large ogre-like creature that speaks really good etiquette. Okay, with Roselia, that was there. You're on the very base level. You'll have to go past Iveron's shop of the Elven Customs that he makes there, the crafting shop. So those are pit stops along the way. And if there's anything else you're looking for particularly, tell me. If not, I will have you arrive at Vander's shop. Is that good? Okay. Jeremy.
I do know If I don't find anybody that's fitting the description of basically a beggar, I will approach somebody that might be running a seedy looking stall. Somebody, because you can walk down a way and you can see some pretty honest people, and you catch eyes with the one, you're like, you're gonna scam me.
Right.
That
Okay.
would be the type I would be looking for to give the coin to if I could not find a beggar.
Okay, Jeremy, roll me a 1d6. Tell me what you get.
3.
Okay. So, just a minute. Okay. Roll a 1d20 3 times. Tell me what you get at the beginning of each roll. Just d20 on its own. This is a chance thing.
19.
Okay.
6. And a natural 20.
Okay. Nothing jumps out at you that fits the description of what you're looking for. You see plenty of people talking and bragging. You see people that have hanged meats that are working and cooking things that smells really good. But these people are very flamboyant, fast talkers. You see people that are dealing in coins from all different kinds of locations throughout the world. You see people that are selling different kinds of masks and hats because there's obviously some kind of festival coming up soon. But you do not see anyone that seems to be downtrodden, that seems to be secretive, with an unasserting, outright look to them that matches your description. Okay?
Yeah.
And I've got the numbers here in case you do see it later. Okay? So, you arrive to Vander's. I will say this. The only thing you see remnants from last night is 2 stone blocks that are pushed up against the foundation of the building where you and Finn were standing. As he pushed those blocks up against there, that looks like just a pair of neatly done blocks. And on top of those blocks, for some reason this morning, seems to be some kind of rug or red and gold like carpeting. And there's a vendor there that has different vases and stuff stacked on top of those blocks, as if they've turned that mess from last night into a makeshift table for them to sell vases and extravagant vases from. It has just been encompassed into the city like nothing has ever happened. Okay? That particular person, I want you to roll me a sleight of hand check if you are so choosing to look over that direction and study that for just a minute.
17. I will say the first thing that came to mind describing this person was the salesman at the beginning of the Aladdin cartoon, the one Robin Williams voices.
Yes.
Combination Tupperware coffee pot. Won't break.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
it broke.
Very good. I like that. I like that. As you do and you look over there, the vendor that is selling these things is talking to a young couple that seem to be halflings, and is showing them an urn and is talking through the process. And this woman gives you a long look and a knowing look as you're looking at her wares and stuff. And by that moment that you were looking at her talking to the halflings and looked back at the steps with that roll and then looked back at her, when you came back to her gaze, her eyes were locked on yours. Okay? And then in that moment, she turns back around, but you caught it though. She was looking at you, eyeballing her stuff. Okay? Now you can act on that or you can do nothing with that. That's up to you. But you are right there within 15, 20 foot of the front entrance to Vander's.
You said, was basically looking at her. I saw that she was just kind of, was she sizing me up, or was she just looking at my gear, my possessions?
She was looking you dead in the eyes because you were giving a long look to her wares stacked on top of those steps. Those pieces of stone that may or may not have been there from before. She's looking at your uncertainty of the situation. There's a look that people have when they're shopping, and there's a look when the people are looking at something that isn't quite right. And she has identified that look in you with her roll.
And one for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I cast Child Arm. Right on.
I got the cookie.
Mm-hmm.
I think he will stop. Because he's close enough to Vander's now that if something goes awry, he's close enough to act on. So it's just going to be we'll go ahead. I'll be in there in a moment.
Okay. As the rest of the group make their way over to that was kind of your thing, Azara, so I'll let you take the lead on walking up to Vander's shop. And Finn waits towards the end, and you see Finn turn around and he murmurs something to Rook that you all can't quite make out. And Finn's words to you as he kind of looks at you off to the side, Rook, is try not to linger. Remember, we didn't see anything. And he kind of gives you a nod, looking for your nod of agreement.
He nods.
Okay. He turns without making. He looked past you as he said this, and nods and goes ahead and follows suit with everybody going up into Vander's. So, I will real quickly do that scene with you, then I will do the scene with everyone else walking up inside there. Okay, we'll try to end around 10:30. Are we good with that, guys? Okay. So, Jeremy, as you do, as you are that way, the female that seems to be working this place is a typical commoner human. I would say that this woman appears to look kind of like a gypsy. Okay, but she is not overly dark skinned as some of gypsies are. This young girl looks like Uma Thurman's daughter from the the TV show. Stranger Things. Do you remember Uma Thurman's daughter? She worked at the shop in the mall with the other male in this. It looks like her. So she's maybe 18, 19-ish. Very fast talker, very charismatic. Speaking about these urns and stuff like that. And as she's doing that, the two halflings are like, yes, but you want to understand, it's not for your typical animal. This is what we're wanting to keep in here is something we want to keep for the longest time. Pogo was extraordinarily important to both of us. And the woman says, Pogo was a darling. And we want to make sure that he, our only child, and the two hold each other in an embrace and kind of hug each other side to side, can stay with us for all of times. Would this one, is the coin we're offering enough for this one particularly, for this need? And she looks at them and she goes, she holds it out, she takes the lid and she pops the lid off again and she looks at it. She goes, this would be a fine tribute to Pogo. And she's almost being sarcastically nice, and Rook, you pick up on it automatically. She goes, and because you've touched my heart, and I understand that loss is something we all go through, I want to make sure, you know what, I'm not going to give you this one. I have a better one. One that I think matches the coins and the sincerity you will need for dear Pogo. And she turns around and grabs a vase that looks fancier from the outside. Rook, do a perception check, please.
17.
Easily cheaper than the one she had. This one just looks fancier. Whereas the other one had different pieces of metal and things embroidered on it and stuff like this. This one's painted up and decorated more, but you can tell the quality of this one is lesser. Okay, you recognize this. She goes to them and she says that will be 3 gold for this particular receptacle. You're surprised it's worth 1. Okay. And she says, and if you would want to, we can actually even engrave that with the name for an additional 5 silver. If that is something you all would like, would you want to do that? And she's shaking her head yes, and trying to persuade them of this. And the 2, with a natural 7 taken by her words, agree. She goes, then I will have it ready for you by this afternoon. Please come back by and pick it up. I will have it wrapped up special for you, and I'll thank you for that. Of course, I will need half of that up front to go ahead and start the craftsmanship on that. You can pay me the rest later when you show up to collect it with Pogo's name written on the front forever. The 2 of them are like, thank you very much. We very much appreciate your sincerity. And she's like, it's an honor. And as the 2 hand her over the coin and they walk off, she's counting it out and she's putting it into a purse and she has her back to you. And she looks over her shoulder and she goes, so are you just standing there, or do you have some kind of dead pet that you want to keep forever as well?
He just kind of leans up against the nearest wall looking at her. You're not planning on being here when they get back, are you?
Can I help you?
Or be it beyond me to tell someone how to run their business.
I agree.
I think that was creative, actually. It was quite creative. I've seen more shrewd dealings. I'd say yours was pretty top notch. You almost had me convinced, and that's hard to do.
She smiles and she goes, so I can see that you're a man of simple words and one that likes to get to the point.
I've done my fair share of petty crimes, if that's what you're insinuating.
I'm just curious why we haven't got there yet, though.
It's a strange place to set up a shop. High traffic?
She takes a deep breath and she looks around to the right and left. And when she does, she reaches up and she brushes her hair behind her ear. You lucky motherfucker. The second that she does that, you recognize that she has flashed some kind of sign with her hand. Okay? And as you look over in the direction of that side, and this is because of your passive perception, Jeremy, okay? You recognize that somebody on the other side has a similar red and golden rug with other kind of materials on it. On what could possibly be some other kind of crates or something else. And they seem to start packing up shop. And she has just done a casual thing like this. And she was talking to you, and you recognize that she has sent someone a sign, a signal. Okay? And what was the last thing you asked her there again?
Basically saying it's kind of a strange place to set up shop. Is it here because of high foot traffic?
She goes, if I'm being 100% honest, it actually is. There are a lot of people that, with the cold weather and people not having the money to keep their animals indoors, not all of us can be as rich as the people that run this place, the folks at their actual true foundation of this city. And unfortunately, when that happens, it is my job to collect the money from their misfortune. And loss is a gain for me. And for the cold season, there's a lot of loss. And there's a lot of gain for me. And, you know, I didn't even have to have a table. So I didn't even have to register with the people in town to have this booth. It was kind of already here. You could say I stumbled upon it.
One could say that. They absolutely could.
Mhm.
Quite the gold mine of an opportunity, isn't it?
Is there a trick with your words there, Jeremy, when you say gold mine? Are you poking at something, or are you just saying random things?
I'm just kind of trying to think. I'm trying to hot button.
The duck flies south. You know, I don't know what you're up to. What's your game, Jeremy? But when you say that, she looks at you hesitantly as if it's supposed to be some kind of sign or something. When you say it, that combination of words strikes her funny, and you see her hesitation for a moment. And she goes, it's profitable and simple enough, and the folks that I owe money to are satisfied with the work and this service that we provide.
That's what I was hoping to hear. And he looks over his shoulder at the person that she signaled. How
She
many of you
gulps.
are there?
What'd you say?
How many of you are there? I might have a very lucrative opportunity in mind for you.
She smiles. Everybody's so clever. Well, there's one of me. But if you're talking about my daggers, there's 9 of those. And she smiles and she pulls back the side of this robe that she has over one shoulder, and you can see they're lined on the inside. And she smiles. She goes, sometimes I use those to pry the caps off the urns, and sometimes I don't.
He'll actually pull open his cloak a little bit and show that belt of daggers that he's got. So, I understand.
Are you... Is this an intimidation of any kind?
Not at all. He's trying to pander to her a little bit to see common ground.
Okay. Okay. With that, and she sees that, she goes, so you have dealings with some of us? I see you have some of Carson's goods from the, from Skywell. Probably could have made a better deal with me, but that will treat you well. If you knew where that had been before, you probably wouldn't be wearing it so close to your groin.
I don't ask questions. I'm going to make you a proposal, and I ask that you don't ask any either.
She turns around and she starts polishing off some more. She goes, I'm listening.
You familiar with the date with destiny?
She smiles. We call it crash course down here, but sure, the date with destiny, I'm familiar with her.
Well, here's my proposition for you. There's a very dim bounty hunter amongst them, whose name has happened to make it onto my list of individuals who will hopefully not be around much longer. You seem to be pretty good at swindling people out of their things.
I'm good at understanding where the money comes from.
Well, he's a bounty hunter, so there's plenty of it.
And what are you proposing?
I'm proposing that you get him locked up in a trade. Really catch his ear. And once he is distracted, I say we take him to a back alley. You take your turn, I'll take my turn. I walk away with a finished task, you walk away with a coin purse.
She ponders on this for just a minute, and you can see that she's wrapping up her stuff, getting ready to leave. Okay. She goes, and if he were to pay me to say who sent me,
Well,
more than you could afford, what then?
I can tell you this much. There's one of me now. And that's as far as I'll elaborate on that. We work together. You walk away. Lots of coin in your hand. I just want his life.
Roll a persuasion check.
It's a dirty 20.
She looks at you and she says, I don't make moves without permission. But we will see if this proposal of yours is worth it to us, and what webs it may get us stuck within. I need a
Well, you
number.
can sweeten the deal.
She
He
says,
carries the trophies of some quite exotic kills that I'm sure could fetch a good price elsewhere. You're more than welcome to those as well.
She goes, I know. We would be glad to do that, but I need to know what your investment is in this. And she's looking at you, getting ready to see if you're full of shit or not hardcore.
My investment. He's gonna pull up the sleeve of his jacket,
Okay.
and he's gonna show her where he's got that bounty hunter's name and Sir Khan's name carved into his arm and with his knife.
Okay. She looks at you, and she goes, so I have a name. And as she wraps up the last one of these urns, and she's folding them up, and she's putting that rug over her shoulder. She's grabbing that, and they clank together just a little bit, and they sound cheap and hollow for the most part. She goes, someone will get in touch with you. But some money up front would have been a nice gesture. And she turns and she walks away, headed towards the other woman on the other side that already has their stuff bundled up and is giving you death stare from a distance and waiting for her to join her so the two can walk off together. Okay?
He's actually gonna holler back. If anybody needs a name, tell him the deck of the Wraith, or the Wraith of the deck is the one who's asking.
There's a stop. She does not turn around. I'll let you know if that matters or not. She continues on. You don't know if that hesitation meant something or not. It would have been too hard to read. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. Now, the others have headed inside, and I'll put you there briefly behind them as I'll just describe this once to make this simple. Okay? Good interaction. I would love to just give you everything you want, but I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Because these things are not simple. But there were some rolls there that got you kind of the things that you want. But at the same time, you have to understand if there's no money up front, they may just, it's like, why wouldn't I just rob the fucker now I got his name? I know he's got shit on him. What's it got? What do you need to be a part of this for now? You have to understand, I know we're not, you can't be a professional thieving deal maker in the middle of the moment. So I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt. But there's some
Well,
work
see,
there to make
that,
it
that,
through.
it kind of works a couple different ways.
Yeah.
If she decides to go off and do it on her own, Spyder's gonna find out about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, she made a mention she doesn't do shit on her own.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, Azara, you have headed up the stairway, the short set of steps, and there's this large stone porch on the front that I've discussed before. It has the falcons that are the railings for the banisters that go up to it. It's got a nice table there that sits up front, and there's a large door that seems to have green painted wood surrounding it, and it seems to have a mural of the city and things like that and people and populated. It's a stone door that has been slid back and recessed into its walls, and the green and metal doors, the wood is stained green, is wide open, and the entranceway to this place, and it smells amazing in there. It smells of fragrant candles, almost like a head shop in a way inside, and you can hear the wood crackling and stuff as you look inside, and it looks very, very, very similar to the picture that I have behind me. Okay? As you walk in, you would see two people. Okay? One is the female figure that I explained from Jeremy's encounter last night. The female elven figure. She has the white robe draped over the back of her chair. And she is sitting there in elegant commoner's clothes. Elegant in their design and fashion. She is all about reds and browns with black leather pants that have brown leather boots that come up kind of high to the knee. Beautiful woman, looks sophisticated, a bit snotty, and has her hair tied up in a long brown ponytail off the back, and she is flipping through a book. It's laid out on the table. A pretty attractive woman. And she kind of looks over out of one eye as you walk in through the front entrance and begins to flip through her book. There's a steaming cup of something sitting in front of her and a half-eaten roll on a plate. Okay. With that, you look at the counter, and there's no one at the counter. Now, have you been in here before?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, it's... You wouldn't notice anything peculiar. Okay? And from a lower chamber that comes behind the central bar of this place comes Vander with his head into a book, carrying a plate that has a medallion on it of some kind and saying some words and reading out of a book, and he's holding it almost like he's underneath holding it like a waiter would, and he sits it down on the bar and he looks at you. And he sits down the medallion, the plate, and takes the book and opens it and covers it up, and he looks at you and he goes, "Well, this is sooner than I had expected. How are you doing today?"
I have to say hi to a little friend.
Right on. I get it.
But the response to that would be like, yes, I think that I would like to start moving sooner rather than later on discovery. So I believe you mentioned you may know a potential new friend.
He looks at you for a long moment. Now, Bella, just please describe to me, what is it you're referring to?
The other Duriblin.
Okay. So he looks and he says, I could certainly arrange that. She has no problem feeling safe around anyone to my experience, so I don't see it would be a problem. Do you have a particular place you would like to arrange this meeting?
Uh, I am not as familiar with this area. Um, and for a minute, I think she was gonna say the restaurant that she went to, but then was like, maybe not. Um, so I'm trying to think.
Okay. As you hesitate and pause, Arson, you were in there too, and you hear the woman, the sophisticated, attractive elven woman with the white robe hanging on the back of her chair. She speaks up from the side, and she says, let me make something up here. That's not bad. She says, the Fighting Spirits Meadery is always a good place to meet up with new acquaintances and have a bite or so. Their breakfast menu is delicious. And she says this it's kind of arrogant for her to even get involved in your conversation, but she says this from the table sitting beside you all, and Arson, she says this, but she never looks up from her book as she says the words. You recognize the Fighting Spirits as the place you stood outside of, Arson, when Finn did the spell that put you all the way up on the roof of it in that contest with the greenhouse and the bare ass and the guy passed out in there. That's the place they're referring to. Do you say anything, Arson, at this moment? Or in Rook, you walk in just soon enough to where she's made this suggestion to the group and you've overheard it.
No, Rook's content for the moment.
Okay. Azarda, what do you think of the suggestion? Vander kind of grins and raises an eyebrow.
Well, I think that is a great suggestion. What is your name?
As you look across to her, there's a long moment there where she doesn't answer you. Because I'm looking for it and I can't half see because I'm half blind. Okay, got it. Found it. I got notes, people. Yes, notes. As you ask that, she says, my name's Melora. And if we do meet again, it would be a surprise to you and me, as I don't plan on staying here for very long, unfortunately.
Well, it's a pleasure for our brief encounter.
She just kind of nods and goes back to reading her book, and she moves her finger and flips a page without touching it. And you notice this abruptly as she continues on, and she takes her hand up like this, and she kind of relaxes her arm back behind her head and plays with the braid of her hair as she's reading through the book. And as she picks up her other hand, and as she's doing this, upon closer inspection, you can see that there's like a gold highlight underneath the words that she's reading, as if she's leaving like an arcane highlighter mark as she's reading through the words. And you can see her lips moving softly. Roll an Arcana check for me, please. As a magic caster, I will let you do this.
Data intelligence +1, and I rolled the 14, so 15.
15. She may look like she's just reading a book, but she is maintaining concentration on some kind of spell, and you're not sure what it is. If someone didn't make that kind of check, it would look as if she was just someone reading through a book arcanely. But you can see that she is focused on something else as she's making small talk with you. Diverge from that what you'd like.
So she's focused on something else?
You know what it is to hold concentration on a spell, and that is what she is doing currently. Although she's able to talk and do normal things, she is preoccupied with something at the same time.
I think she may sort of like look around and be like, so what is it exactly you're upholding currently?
When you say that, she has a smile on her face, kind of, but she doesn't look up from the book. Aren't we clever?
I just want to make sure that there is not something aimed at my head.
She sits down the book. And she looks across at you. She goes, young lady, the only thing aimed at your head currently are my eyes now. And she looks you up and down, almost sadistically in a way. There's something very sexual about the way that she speaks and her mannerisms. It's not overly sweet like some fake stuff. There's something very seductive about her just naturally, and you pick up on it automatically. Okay? She's not dressed provocatively. She may have a couple buttons undone on the shirt, and there may be just a touch of cleavage or something like that, but nothing unclassy, mind you. The leather pants and the long boots don't come across as dominatrix or anything, but they do hold her figure well. And her elegance in the way that she sits there with the glossiness of the shirt, but where it hugs her in different places, and her overall confidence strikes you. You've not seen anyone quite like this in recent memory. And as she looks at you, the way her eyebrows are kept, the way she is very neat, the way all of her hair is pulled back, this is almost like someone that casts spells to make them look a certain way. You would almost have to think that she's had arcane work done. Right? There's something very elegant and perfect about this woman as she looks across at you in this way. And as she says, my eyes are the only thing. She closes the book and she stands up. And she says to Vander, she says, if you would for me, please, tell Ran, R-H-A-N, that I'll be returning my dinner or breakfastware to the fighting spirits, and I'll return shortly. He'll need to help keep shop while I'm gone. And Vander kind of gives her a knowing nod, and he goes, that would be appreciated. And he looks back over to you, and before he gets ready to say a word, he goes to open up his mouth and open up his fingers. She goes, come along then. And she speaks to you, Zara. And she goes, I'll introduce you to the people that run the place next door. You do wish to meet people, don't you? If that's what I've heard is correct. Vander chuckles at this. And she stops in the doorway and she passes Rook. And she passes Arson. And she goes past Finn. And she looks down at Finn's sword in his own spell book. And she kind of, and smiles. And she goes, and hurry, because if you want this delicious food, time is running short and they'll be out soon. He looks at you, Vander, and he says to you, Azara, he says, if you wish to go next door, and he kind of smiles and share food, I will see that she comes and meets you shortly.
Very well.
And with that, he says, he kind of leans in. And he says, and don't mind her. She's not the most sociable type. Her best friends are books. If you can speak the language of books, you'll find a way to reach Melora. And he kind of leans back and he just smiles. And he goes back to that medallion and starts reading on some things. With that, does anyone else have anything they want to add to this conversation as she walks by? You guys are more than welcome to ask her a question. Anything of that nature. Okay? Does anyone have anything else? Okay. So it's 10:30. I'll go ahead and we'll do this, we'll give a mercy end here for everybody. It's got to work early in the morning. And then we'll pick up with, I've got to get used to her, Melora, Melora, her taking us next door and having us get a bite at the Fighting Spirits Meadery and Winery. It's halfling owned, which is ironic. And we'll talk about a bit of the history of the place and stuff like that. And that's what we'll take up next time. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay. So let me get my screens pulled up here. Stop recording. And stop recording. All right. Once again, Brian Kynes, want to thank everybody for hanging out with us this Sunday afternoon. This is going to be very interesting and very fun. And I appreciate you guys not playing like you know different things that happened with you all sitting in the same room and stuff, you know. Obviously, she's keeping concentration on something. Obviously, some of us know what this is. Some of us don't. So thanks for playing along. It's the best we can do when we're all in the same group. But this will be interesting. And I already know this place. This place has a long history. The people in it. And this will be a good way to start developing things. Keep in mind, guys, for the next campaign or the next phase of this, think about how you want to move things in your direction. What Arson's goal is. You already talked to Rainlore. You have more information about who this Nadia Riverwind person is. You know, think about ways you guys can come to a collective agreement and get your goals accomplished as a group. All right? And we'll take off with that next weekend. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next Sunday.